All right.
Boom.
All right.
All right. Hey, so there's a lot of stuff going on here. I did want to go back to that whole $3.5 trillion thing and the $1.2 trillion thing. So obviously, it's the 3.5 thing that's really got everybody all up in arms because it's supposed to be an infrastructure thing, but they're calling it human infrastructure.
Oh, good God.
Which is, like free college education, free child care. They had in there amnesty for the dreamers as well. They're calling that infrastructure. So with infrastructure, you can pass these things on it's a reconciliation bill as well. So it's a pure majority. There's no filibuster with reconciliation. So that's what that's what they're salivating over, is that they got this on a reconciliation. And by calling it human infrastructure, which that's not what infrastructure is.
Right.
That's a lie. They're building that on a lie here.
That's a whole new term.
Right, exactly. And so two people on the Democrat side, because they have if all the Democrats vote for it, it's a done deal, right? But you got two people on the Democrat
Manchin
side
and Sinema. Yeah,
that's right. And what they're saying is, I mean, you take a look at Joe Manchin. And he's, what is he, West Virginia? It's it's a traditionally a Republican state, and he got voted in because of his moderate views. And so he's got some conservative, fiscally conservative ideals. And he's seeing where the inflation is going. He's seeing how that's hurting his state, and he sees that if we go forward with this, we're going to punish my constituents. I mean, he's standing up for his constituents. Sinema's doing the same thing, and she's calling out the Democrats for these manipulations that they're doing, because they both believe that the 1.2 trillion true infrastructure bill that has bipartisan support is absolutely needed. And Sinema's calling out the Democrat Party, and specifically Nancy Pelosi, for not putting that actual infrastructure bill first, but yet they're holding that hostage with this $3.5 trillion human infrastructure bill, which she thinks is dirty pool. And boy,
it's Nancy Pelosi.
These activists this past week, you saw where they harassed her, they followed her into the bathroom and filmed her in there. That was, and these are people that
invasion of privacy right there. Not to mention there are total strangers illegal. In there. Total strangers
being filmed, and it's illegal, by the way, to follow to do that to a sitting person in Congress. And these are people that are saying things like, hey, my parents crossed over the border and I'm a dreamer and this, and I can get you out of office. And it's like, well, I don't understand the power. I don't understand that blows me away. Yeah. And seeing how the press is dealing with that and not actually saying I don't understand why that's okay to do that.
Nah, there's a few things to go over there. Like Sinema seems to be writing out the rest of her term, looking to go into the public sector. The word has it that she has really flip-flopped from where she used to be. That public interest money kind of made her stop voting in the way of public interest. And now she's just riding her way out and looking for her next gig in the private, very lucrative gig in the private sector when she gets out, whatever. Manchin, now, he's always known to have been a moderate. He said something, I can't quote him verbatim, but he said something to the effect of that you can't have our people becoming dependent on social help. And God, how did he say it? But it was something like that once they become dependent, then it becomes
like a drug.
Yeah. And I agree with that.
I do too.
I totally agree with that. So, I mean, that's what it is. I guess the real problem comes back to Pelosi and friends when they try shoving all this crap in here, as always. And instead of the important things that the American public really needs, we're shoving all this special interest stuff in there, and it's just become a giant burden. And then people start pointing fingers at each other, blaming each other for why it doesn't get passed. There's no end to the corruption in Washington. There's just no end. So you can't even sift through this and make sense of it, hardly.
You're right about that, Barry. It is very tough to sift through it. Everybody's got their agenda.
Yeah.
I'm seeing this happening with Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema, and I'm thinking, I don't agree with most of the things that they say, but I do see that if a Democrat decides to go against the, you're not with us. Boy, do they ever get crucified. And that to me is a bad. But
the Republicans do that too. The team politics. I mean, come on.
I don't like it. I think it's just wrong to do this kind of thing. I mean, you're elected to represent your constituents in that particular area. That everybody in the country isn't the same, but these people, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's what we're seeing in Congress right now. They have no guardrails over there. They basically can do whatever they want. And the things that they're saying are so absolutely ridiculous. I can't even believe it. But the one thing that I am seeing right now that I'm really concerned about is this whole thing that we've seen evolving over the last several months with the parents fighting against the critical race theory. And with Garland coming out and saying that and going to the FBI and saying
that burns me up, especially with how corrupt the FBI has been shown to be of late.
Absolutely. And looking at parents and looking at them as terrorists is a potential terrorist.
Biden said that himself.
Here's the thing, Barry, is that I've never lived in America where it seemed like the federal government was more concerned about an enemy from within than the enemy outside of themselves.
Especially when it's parents looking out for their children's best interest.
How outrageous is this?
Oh, well, my God. They have no business being in, let alone the FBI. This is disgusting.
So let me just read this. Attorney General Merrick Garland announcement on Monday came after the National School Boards Association, which is the biggest school board union, sent President Joe Biden a letter claiming America's public schools and its education leaders are under an immediate threat. And so this is what spurred this on was the school, the union actually did this. The NSBA asked the White House to consider investigating attendees of school board meetings and even using the 9/11 era Patriot Act to do so.
Ooh.
So the 9/11 Patriot Act is for terrorists. And the only reason you could use the Patriot Act is because you consider them to be terrorists. So now the school board, and we know a lot about the National School Board Association.
They're
leftist.
Proponents. They're Marxists. They're proponents of critical race theory.
They
that
are.
Whole entire national. So we know that Marxists play dirty pool. They'll be racist and while calling you a racist at the same time. These people, oh God, this disgusts me. They're trying to tell you that they are the ones that know how to raise your children, that the parents have no right to interfere with the way that they're going to indoctrinate these kids.
Well, this is what's so sick. And when we go back to that $3.5 trillion human infrastructure package, what that means is free college means that these are the same people that will be dictating the curriculum in colleges, those free colleges. And why do they want to do childcare, preschool? Because of this. They want to be able to get to your kids before they even get into school.
I'm telling you, Merle, college is dead. It's already going down the tubes. It's becoming obvious to people that the price of it is unattainable. For what? You're getting nothing. You're not learning anything, because once you get out, as I just mentioned about going on Indeed and filling out the resume of this stuff, and then I'm taking a test. I took a 15-minute test after that, which actually was a very good test. The questions were very good at rating my online marketing skills, I have to say. And so these days, I've said it 100 times, if you want to become a psychologist and say it's going to happen, and say someone that the level of Jordan Peterson puts out an online course that is available to everyone, it's a canned online course. Or you could go to your local college and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for that. Which are you going to do? And which are you going to come out and excel? I'm telling you, they have shot themselves in the foot. This whole Marxist movement has shot everything in their own. They're just sitting there shooting themselves in both feet at the same time, like Yosemite Sam.
Man, I love that you invoked Yosemite Sam. So let me go on. Garland did is he's attempting to stifle dissent, and he's attempting to say, beware, big brother is coming after you if you speak out against my policies or against Biden's policies. Wow. That's a quote from Rand Paul. And then in his letter to the FBI, Merrick Garland tells them the Constitution does not, quote, protect efforts to intimidate individuals based on their views. Actually, you still have free speech, whether someone's intimidated or not. It's not in the Constitution. Yet this is exactly what's happening to Kyrsten Sinema. Garland wants parents who oppose CRT to be viewed as potential terrorists. But it's a double standard that we're seeing now. Get this, Barry. Let me just go to this because this is unreal to me. I'm just going to click on this article. This is critics question. You can share the screen. Critics question. I'm just going to read it out. Just a couple lines here. They question Garland's. Oh my gosh, what the heck? I hate when it just automatically changes to another thing. But let me see if I could get into that again here. All right. So they're saying Merrick Garland, who earlier this week injected the FBI into the national debate over far left local school curriculums, has a son-in-law whose company has gotten rich peddling K through 12 educational materials obsessed with systematic racism, intersectionality, and white supremacy. Alexander Tanner, who married Garland's daughter Rebecca in 2018, is the co-founder and president of Panorama Education, a major player in the teacher training and curriculum industry. Can you believe that?
No, I can't.
So his father-in-law is using the FBI to crack down and protect his son-in-law's business.
Yeah. This is more to my point.
The guy's gotten rich doing this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. And this is more to my point. Hey, eventually companies are going to realize that they need quality educated workers. And if they're not getting them from people that are teaching critical race theory, they're going to get them somewhere else. And so private institutions are going to, the problem is accreditation. That's the big stumbling block. But at the end of the day, if you want to be an online marketer and you learn it through a private institution and classes, and it's going to start becoming prevalent. There's no way it can't. I mean, the need is there.
Well, and here's it's a common theme that we're looking at here is the reason these things are happening is that there's a boatload of money that's flowing through here to these people, and they're not going to give up on that money. Why would they kill the golden goose, right? Why would they do something to the social media companies? Why would they try to get rid of critical race theory when you've got the head of the DOJ, his daughter is making a boatload of money off of this? And you're going to have the corrupt FBI. They've ruined the FBI. The FBI has no credibility.
It's a joke. Total joke.
They said, if a crime happened, and they said, we're going to have the FBI research this for you.
They probably already caused the crime. Put me
in jail. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is what we're seeing here is the FBI has turned basically into a political arm of our government, and it's much like the KGB was in the USSR. It's like they're an organization to be afraid of now because it's not about justice. This is about Big Brother enforcing his will, and these are the munchkins that are going to go out and make sure that you are going to be in line or you're going to disappear.
Yeah, everything, and we kind of say this every week, but every branch and institution of our government and everything related to it is so corrupt right now that it's ridiculous. And it comes back to us and our taxpayer dollars, from Nancy Pelosi trying to push all this crap through Congress for $3.5 trillion and more, and the military industrial complex continuing to bleed us through forever wars, and all of these different social media people buying up through lobbyists, the healthcare industry. I'm telling you, Merle, if we could find a way to reform this government, we'd be paying 10%. We would need to only pay 10% of what we do in taxes right now.
I totally agree with you. And by the way, I think that that's a very patriotic thing for you to say. As
Agreed.
we know, in the Declaration of Independence, it actually commands us to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting too that the Declaration says that no nation would do this for, a few things that are going wrong. But when these things pile up so high and you've lost all of your freedom, it's really incumbent on us to do exactly what you just said.
This is why this independent media is incredibly important. You're not getting
really
crap over mainstream media. And that's why it's a sinking ship too. Thank God it's a sinking ship.
Well, Barry, let me just change it. One thing I wanted to bring up was we were talking about Joe Rogan, and you were saying he's not an anti-vaxxer. And did you know that the Webster changed the definition of anti-vaxxer?
Well, first of all, there wasn't a term called anti-vaxxer until about a year ago. So,
that's right. And so the term was, let's see, Webster's dictionary changes definition of anti-vaxxer to fit Biden narrative. It says, to the words, a person who opposes the use of vaccines. That was the definition. They added, or regulations mandating vaccination.
Oh my God, really? Oh, that's just creepy. That just made me feel,
to it.
Dude, that made me feel dirty.
The whole thing makes me feel dirty too.
Oh my God.
And it's like, well, you can't even trust the dictionary anymore.
No, but awareness. There's so much awareness going on. The people that are just millions and millions of people that are subscribing to all these independent podcasts that are learning all of this. And it's so important. Well, the thing is, though, we have to be very careful that we don't get censored ourselves.
Yeah.
Speaking of this brings it right into this fun little thing. Speaking of censorship and canceling people. How about this? Critics call to cancel Dave Chappelle, his Netflix special. What? Because he did a Netflix special, and in quotes, he ridicules trans people. This is a New York Post article and a CNN article. I looked at both. They're pretty good. I could pull them up.
Wow, diabolically different
yes,
places. I like that you did that.
Yes, but the point still is, Chappelle says, quote, gender is a fact. Every human being in this room, every human being on this earth had to pass through legs of a woman to be on this earth. That's a fact. He then goes on to make explicit jokes about the bodies of trans women. Okay, so the National Black Justice Coalition, a civil rights advocacy group, called on Netflix to pull the special on Wednesday. Now, listen to this. Again, Dave Chappelle, Black, brother. He's too big, first of all, to cancel. But the National Black Justice Coalition,
which I've never heard of.
Yeah, but still black trying to cancel the black.
Yeah, right. That's happening all the time.
Oh, they are always tripping. They've divided people up into so many categories that they can't help tripping over themselves.
They can't.
It's like the feminists trying to back trans women from beating up women in sports. It's like, hey, one way or another, you're a hypocrite. Yeah,
no kidding, right?
No.
This is really crazy, and I find it very interesting how the LGBTQ movement.
I think they added a couple more letters.
I think they did too. I don't know what they are though.
XYZ.
and that and the Black civil rights movement have been combined together. But when you take why, I don't really understand.
Doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't. And then when you see like a person like Dave Chappelle getting lambasted by a Black organization because he had because he was telling the truth about how people are born, it makes you scratch your head. And like, is this really a Black organization, or is this more of an LGBTQ organization? You take a look at Black Lives Matter, and the three women that started this are all LGBTQ, and they're Marxists. And you start to take a look at, well, what is this? What are these organizations really? And when you boil it down, they're all Marxist organizations that are using the same tactics that they've been using since Marxism started, by dividing people into these class warfare groups. And it works every single time. It's working right now. And if people would just wake up and realize, wait a second, united we stand, divided we fall. I mean, haven't we heard that a million times? But look how we're falling right now.
Well, the thing is, my theory on this has always been the seductiveness of the Marxist BS and the LGBT XYZ thing is that because you don't have to think. Here's your playbook, call people racist and sexist, and now you stand on their backs. You prop yourself up standing on the backs of your friends and family.
That's right.
It's horrifying. It's absolutely
horrifying.
But it's seductive because you don't have to think. And now you feel superior.
And it really goes to your, you have your logical brain, and then you have your emotional, wild, crazy brain. And Marxism appeals to the emotions only. Yeah. And that's interesting. If we look at the Bible, by the way, the way in for the devil to get into to really affect you is never through your solid logical thinking. It's always through the emotional door. And so look at what all the havoc that's been reaped by this. Hey, I got a story just to add on top of that. This is an interesting story that happened in Atlanta. This neighborhood is a Black neighborhood. These people were being terrorized by the KKK. They were getting these.
When was this?
This has been over the last few months. They've been getting these letters from somebody from the KKK.
I bet it's actually bullshit.
It's actually been threatening them. It's frightening and racist terrorist tactics. You know how the KKK is, and that these people he was talking about killing them and doing all these terrible things to their families. Well, the police were really looking for, who did this, and they were trying to get a clue. And as they started looking, the letters stopped happening. So they were like, okay, by mid-March, they're saying we really didn't have anything to go on. This is a detective that was working on this, and they had a suspect. The suspect simply stopped at that point. But then another letter was delivered on September 6th that led to a clue, which was enough for detectives to get a search warrant for the home of a 30-year-old Teresha Lucas. It turned out the person behind the racist notes directed at Black families was a Black woman.
I'm not surprised. I mean, not at all.
Because it goes on to say just weeks ago, this organization wrote about another hate hoax that happened at a high school near St. Louis. In that case, the person who wrote racist graffiti on the wall of several bathrooms was eventually identified as a Black student.
Yeah, and I heard about that. I think I heard about both of these now that you mention it. And that's why you're innocent until proven guilty, and we got to do our due diligence. This is the Jussie Smollett thing gone wild. And aren't we tired of being fools for falling for all of this stuff? But you know what? Mainstream media doesn't care, because they run that initial story, and then the next week when it's debunked, they just ignore it.
I know. That's what I hate so much, is that they totally ignore it. Well, look, Barry, I just have a take on this, is that I'm 55. I've been Black all my life.
Have you?
I have. And I think I'm going to stay that way. But the fact is, I've been all over the country. I've never once seen any of these KKK people. None
Yeah,
of them,
I never
have
have
talked
either.
to me.
Mm.
I've never seen anybody marching around in a white. I've seen them on TV.
Never been threatened with a
I-
noose with
no,
someone with a hood over their head.
no one's ever burned a cross in front of my house. I've just, and but if you read the media, you would think the KKK is the scourge of America, that they're everywhere.
Right.
I've never seen it.
I know, man. I know. I'm going to shift gears a bit just because I just wanted to bring this up. I've heard about this story for a few months now, probably a year, but it's never talked about in mainstream media. And it's about, and I'll share the screen on this. Crystal and Sagar talk about it on fairly regular occasion. And this is this Stephen Donziger guy. And he is a lawyer. I'm just going to talk from the cuff. I didn't take any notes on this because I was listening to Kristen and Sagar at the gym this morning, and they were bringing a follow-up to this whole thing. Now, let me back up here. Chevron. Okay, Chevron, this is the lawyer that pressed charges against Chevron because their environmental atrocities in Ecuador. They destroyed miles of the coastline or something, caused a lot of cancer to the people, the natives there, and never were held up on any charges of accountability. And he pursued them. He's an environmental lawyer. Well, by bringing this out and pursuing this, Chevron being so incredibly powerful within our government, they destroyed him. They pressed charges against him. And, again, forgive me, I didn't take any notes on this. And I only just looked this article up a minute ago, and it's probably a little old, I think. I'm not seeing it. Oh, January 29th, 2020. So this is not updated at all. So anyways, he has been under house arrest for the last 2 years for not turning his laptop over, because they want to do an investigation. And he said he wouldn't do that because of client confidentiality. And this is the most minor misdemeanor that you can possibly be charged with. All right. Well, he had been put under house arrest for the last 2 years. Now he just got convicted, just as like real super recently, like this week, convicted to 6 months in prison as a result of these charges. The most minor misdemeanor that is out there. And no one's ever gotten any jail time at all over the charges that were brought up against him. And not to mention that he already did 2 years of house arrest.
Yeah.
You would think that they would take that into consideration.
Yes.
And nope. The judge totally bought off, totally crooked.
This is terrible.
This is terrible. And mainstream media dude, they're so in cahoots with everything, big corporate money and the corruption behind it. They won't follow the story whatsoever.
Holy cow. This is, I mean, we're seeing things in epic proportion as far as violations of our basic rights that we have here.
Yes.
And it's reminding me of, this, back to the thing that's happening with parents being considered terrorists by Merrick Garland. And by the way, them suggesting using the Patriot Act, you realize that anybody that's considered a domestic terrorist, they passed a law under the Obama administration that says that they can put you in jail and you don't have the due process. You don't have the right to a speedy trial. Yeah. You don't have the right to even a trial at all. In fact, they can just put you in jail and never let you out.
Kind of sounds like that's what happened to Stephen.
It sounds a lot like that.
Yeah.
But if you categorize, this is the interesting thing, is that the teachers union did, because they were the ones that said that they should use the Patriot Act because these are domestic terrorists, and Joe Biden sent that over to Merrick Garland, and they're going after these parents as terrorists. That means they can put a parent in jail indefinitely.
Well, and look at the extremes that they're still doing with the January 6th riot.
So I was going to go to that as well. Well, it's not just that they're pursuing that. Those people, many of them have been in solitary confinement to this day. and have
Unbelievable.
not actually gone to trial at all because they don't have to bring them to trial.
Our
They can
government is so
consider them
corrupt.
domestic terrorists. And then what you saw when Biden was elected was, and this whole January 6th thing was to criminalize anyone that does not support what they are saying is the truth. And therefore, even this whole thing about misinformation on the internet, you and I could be considered under that umbrella. And that is a terrible thing. It's despotism is what it is, as defined in the Declaration of Independence. And going back to what you said, this is the founders are saying that needs to be broken apart.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff right there. But
it's depressing.
That's what's happening. And so what we see, this whole push towards domestic terrorism and and how they so easily throw out, well, this is domestic terrorism. Was it domestic terrorism when the Dreamers followed Kirsten Sinema into the bathroom and filmed her? No, of course not, because that
pick and choose.
That this is the thing, and there's and it was interesting too that Merrick Garland said what did he say? That speech that intimidates is not under the Constitution. Well, what's the definition of intimidating speech? That is a big, broad category that this could be intimidating.
Snowflakes today, microaggressions.
What I'm saying is that you could make a case for anything being intimidating speech.
Absolutely.
That's why the Bill of Rights doesn't say it that way. The Bill of Rights is very clear on what your rights are, and this is a corruption of that. And when you look at the record of Merrick Garland, this has been his MO for his entire career. So it doesn't surprise us. This is why there were so many people that were in the know that were against him coming in. And if you looked at his trial or confirmation, there's some sketchy stuff he was saying in there. We have to pay attention to this kind of stuff, and there has to be citizen oversight on this kind of stuff. That's been pushed under the rug. They're turning this country into a bunch of followers. Drones, do this, do that, and they've taken and anybody that has any kind of dissent is now considered a domestic terrorist. That sounds a lot like the USSR to me.
I know, but we see the trend. I mentioned it before, like Canada, that one journalist that left there said, boy, Canadians love being told what to do.
Yeah.
And
isn't that crazy?
I think Californians do as well.
They sure do. They sure do.
That's
and
scary.
that's going to ruin the whole state. And it's crazy. Here's one that I got for you. It's there's too many of them in front of me. So NPR is saying that Seinfeld is too white to connect with young Netflix viewers. What a shame that is. I never even thought of.
It's a shame
Seinfeld.
that somebody those words would come out of someone's mouth. That's racist talk there.
I think so too. They're saying Seinfeld will prove too white and politically dated to connect with younger viewers. And this person on Weekend Edition on Sunday, name is Eric Deggans, said non-white characters delivered takeout or were put upon bosses, clueless attorneys, or old guys with a side hustle moving cars from one side of the street to the other. I'm thinking of these episodes. They were all really funny.
They were.
But you're not allowed to be funny.
What if I said,
when you're a Marxist?
Turn that around and I said that about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Good Times. Good Times couldn't possibly relate to white people because it's black and all of that,
But it's funny because Good
racist.
Times was a very popular show amongst white people. So it's just like the craziest thing.
They should not be talking like that. That's racist talk is what I'm trying to say.
It is. I totally agree with you. Why don't they see that?
How about how ridiculously publicized this? Because I looked at the Daily Mail to see what ridiculousness is coming up here. The kidnapping of that what's her name? I can't remember her name now, in Florida, and apparently her boyfriend's on the loose in Florida.
Yeah.
Dog the bounty hunter is in search of both of them.
I like that guy.
Or I shouldn't say both of them. Her body was found.
Yeah, that's right.
This is a clown show. This is what has become of media. And oh, where's the FBI on this one? But the whole thing is too, and this point has come up. There's all these other missing persons in the US at this very time, and we're focused on this one white girl in Florida because, well, she's a pretty white girl, and this whole thing becomes sensationalized. And it's just I don't know, it's disgusting what has become of our media.
Well, at the same time, you know, I hate that you've got a terrible tragedy going on. You've got a thing with these people. And I mean, it's good that we're covering that story. Maybe we should cover other stories.
But if they were black, you would never hear about it. If they're Mexican, you'd never hear about it. I mean, that's my point. I used to watch Dateline way back in the day, and I always thought that, like, it's only white people on there. And I know I'm segregating this stuff out too, but I've thought that for, 15 years. It's just not interesting unless it's a pretty white girl or something.
Huh. Mm-hmm. I never really thought about it.
Well, give it some thought, because it's the truth.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't care. I really don't care about that. I mean, I think these stories become interesting, and somebody picks these. Maybe they're racist, maybe they're not. I don't know. But I hate that as I'm watching this story, that people like Joy Reid are telling me that I'm racist because I'm interested in the story. I don't think that's the thing that I don't think is right.
I think media is racist.
Yeah, maybe. Well, maybe you're right about that. But I mean, I'm not racist because I'm interested in the story, and that's what this is turning
it's
into.
Sensationalized journalism is what I'm saying.
Racism on top of racism is what I'm seeing here. It's like it might be racist that they're doing this, but then they're turning even that into a racist thing. So sure. I don't know. It's crazy. I just try to be non-allergic to racism. You know what I mean? Like, it's so stupid. It's almost not even worth our time unless somebody's justice is being stolen from them. I get that as well. So, I just hate racism. I just can't. I love what's his name said, Rodney King. Can't we all just get along? It's probably the most brilliant thing I've heard from anybody. But hey, I wanted to bring up another thing. I talked about Taiwan a couple of weeks ago and said, watch Taiwan, because now that Afghanistan has fallen, and we really didn't have a backbone in how we handled that whole situation. That this is going to embolden China regarding Taiwan, because they've got this long history where Taiwan used to be a part of China, and after the World War II, China felt like they got ripped off in the treaties because they thought it was going to go back. Well, the fact is Beijing flew 93 military sorties near Taiwan over the last few days. And this is coming to a head right now, Barry. They're saying that China's angry over revelation of U.S. troop training Taiwanese. So the U.S. forces have been secretly training Taiwan's military forces in the country for at least a year amid concerns of Chinese aggression towards the self-ruled island. The report comes as China has stepped up its aggressive military activity near Taiwan, flying nearly 150 warplanes. This is the newest information. 150 warplanes near the island in the past week in an attempt to intimidate a country that has long viewed it as part of its territory. Taiwan, for its part, is preparing for a possible war against China. China is saying, has previously indicated it would retaliate swiftly and immediately to any indication the U.S. had deployed military forces to Taiwan. Senator John Corwin of Texas, he's a Republican, claimed without explanation in August that the U.S. had roughly 30,000 forces on Taiwan. State news in Beijing fired back that, if true, the Chinese military would, quote, crush them by force.
Yeah, well, I think
that's some scary.
That's scary.
We don't want to be in a war with a nation of 7 billion people.
No,
whatever is over there.
but they're forcing our hand eventually.
I got it. Joe Biden is such a great diplomat, and he could.
Oh God, I know. There was a story I saw on a podcast. Now I can't remember, but about how China took over our largest AI company because they came in under the guise of, let's do this research together. Then they buy, of course, as they do, 51% of the stock, take it over, immediately change the name, make it all China, and steal all of the intellectual property.
What they do.
We cannot play fair with that country. But the problem is they use our capitalism against us because the greedy bastards at the top of that company are like, oh my God, I am moving to Montreal or Malibu or wherever the hell I want. And
the fact is because of the currency that they have, they can here when we print currency, it causes inflation. There that it doesn't work the same way. They can just print as much as they want. So hey, how much do you need?
Yeah. It's $500 million. It's nothing. Yeah. Back up the truck,
Charlie.
Yeah. Yeah,
back up the truck.
Hey, do you see this? You're gonna like this story. This is a Florida mom calls for mass exodus of children from woke public school system after final straw of AG Garland threatening to criminalize complaining parents. Keisha King, a really nice Black woman, because we need to know their race, was speaking on a panel for the Pray, Vote, Stand Summit in Virginia on Thursday night. She's a mother and activist from Jacksonville, Florida, regularly speaks out against critical race theory in schools. She said it's not only become so pervasive in public schools across the country that the only way it can be stopped is to pull the kids out of the classroom. I'm pretty much there with her at this point.
Me too.
King said the final straw is AG Merrick Garland's warning to parents that they may face FBI investigation and prosecution for protesting woke agendas. That makes my blood boil just reading that.
Well, and then you realize that it's even worse than just being a criminal, because of the invoking of the terrorism thing means that these people could just disappear.
There you have it.
That's the thing, is that this is the, like, it's one thing for Merrick Garland to threaten these people with law, but another thing to invoke terrorism, because that gives the FBI the authority to take people out of society and never let them back into society.
This guy should be removed from his position.
Absolutely, he should be. This guy is a despot.
The order came from Garland.
There, he did come from him. But remember that it came from him because of the power that this teachers union has over our government now.
Yes.
They did was they wrote a letter. They wrote a letter, said these parents are threatening, they're domestic terrorists. Joe Biden agreed, told his boy, Merrick Garland, hey, these guys are terrorists, go after them. And that's what happened. Never mind local police and state law and all that kind of stuff, because that's who should, if there's a problem,
you got to go up the food chain.
Those are the people that need to go after that. But there's been we haven't seen any violence. We've seen people yelling. We haven't seen any violence or anything like that. Now you could compare that to what we saw over the last couple of summers in Portland against these federal buildings and everything that they have demolished and attacked federal officers. Nothing. We get nothing from that. But if a parent is concerned about his kid, well, they're a domestic terrorist. How do people see that and reconcile that in their minds and say, oh, well, everything is fine?
Unbelievable. How about this? Keisha King here, her photo here, received a standing ovation. I love this. Received a standing ovation on Thursday night from the audience of the Pre-Vote Stand Summit in Leesburg, Virginia, pretty much the epicenter of the CRT thing, when she said the only thing to do was to carry out a max exodus from the public school system to stop CRT. Now read this. She voted Democrat until 2016, when she says she found God and stopped seeing her life purely through the lens of being black.
Thank God.
Yes, man. She started voting Republican afterward. Now, I don't care about her being Republican or Democrat. I don't care about anybody being Republican or Democrat. I care that she stopped seeing her life through the lens of being black.
Amen.
She found the truth.
That's right.
That's what I care
that's
about.
We've been blinded by that ideology. It's, oh, you're black and you're oppressed and your parents were slaves and they owe you something. Well, just like my dad said, nobody owes you anything.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
But he said it sort of like that.
Buddy, we're over again.
Oh my gosh.
I got to go do this food truck gig just because it's a
what?
It's a networking thing. So I'm probably going to get this out a couple hours later or an hour or two later than normal. That's all. But God, she's a lot of stuff we could go on and on.
I know. I think we got a lot of stuff in there, though. That's for sure, man.
Important
this was
stuff.
Great. Yeah, I couldn't wait to talk to you today and just kind of go through this. And I missed last week. I needed to do that, but at the same time, I sure did miss you, man. And
I missed you too.
So great to be back on. I wanted to call you before the show, but then I was like, no, save it for the show.
That's what I was thinking too. That's what I was thinking too. I hate to ruin too much of that.
Anyway, I love it, man. I will talk with you soon.
All right, man. Have a great weekend. Love you, brother.
Yeah, I love you too.
All right,
bye.
Bye.